of the Mason to find it. And to prove that there is a secret, let me point this out. In one of the 2 copies of Morals and Dogma that I own, there was a stamp in the book that read, quote, "Esoteric book for Scottish Rite use only, to be returned upon withdrawal or death of the recipient." The word esoteric is defined. Esoteric, defined for and understood by the specially initiated alone. Albert Pike lays the foundation for the reasons the Masons conceal their information from the average person with this thought from his book entitled Legenda. He wrote this in his book, Legenda, "Not unto all should all be made known." So Morals and Dogma conceals, as did Legenda, a secret inside its pages. And some people can see it, and some people know what that secret is. In fact, Pike wrote this on page 772. "If you desire to find and gain admission to the sanctuary, we have set enough to show you the way. If you do not, it is useless for us to say more, as it has been useless to say so much." Manly P. Hall wrote this in his book entitled The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. The initiated brother realizes that his so-called symbols and rituals are merely blinds fabricated by the wise to perpetuate ideas incomprehensible to the average individual. He also realizes that few Masons of today know or appreciate the mystic meaning concealed within these rituals. Albert Pike told us Masonry conceals its secrets from all except the adepts. I'll identify who these adepts are in a few minutes. He went on to say, or sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols. And here's the purpose: to mislead those who deserve to be misled, to conceal the truth which it calls light from them, and to draw them away from it. Pike continued, "A great number of men who believe themselves Freemasons are ignorant of the meaning of their rites and have lost the keys of their mysteries." We can know who these adepts are that Mr. Pike talked about. Kenneth Mackenzie, a Mason, told us in his book entitled The Royal Masonic Encyclopedia who these adepts were. He wrote this. He said, "Adepts, a name given to the order of the Illuminati. The Illuminati are the enlightened ones, the ones who have seen the light and understand the true meaning of the symbols. But more importantly, the Illuminati was, as we discussed, committed to the destruction of Christianity. Yet Mr. Mackenzie says that the adepts are the Illuminati. The Masons admit that they concealed the truth from their fellow Masons by the use of a lie." Albert Pike wrote, "It is for each individual Mason to discover the secret of Masonry." Notice that Mr. Pike said that there is only one secret to discover. Mr. Pike continued, "Masonry does not inculcate her truths. The word inculcate means to repeat a thought often. So what Mr. Pike is saying is that they only say it once, and you are supposed to figure it out from that one sentence or thought." He went on, "She states them once and briefly, or hints them, perhaps darkly, or interposes a cloud between them and eyes that would be dazzled by them. That rite," talking about the Scottish rite, "raises a corner of the veil even in the degree of apprentice." The degree of apprentice is, as I've said before, the first degree of the Blue Lodge. For it there declares that Masonry is a worship. And it is a worship, the worship of the sun god Lucifer. The sun worshippers, called the Adept Masons, actually admit that they lie to their fellow Masons to conceal the truth from them. Albert Pike wrote, "The blue degrees are but the outer court," and the blue degrees, of course, are the first 3, "are but the outer court of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations." Mr. Pike adds a similar thought from page 53 of his book entitled Agenda. "Masonry permits the utterance of false interpretations which serve the double purpose of misleading the ignorant, the idle, and indolent, whom it is desirable to lead astray, and of indirectly indicating to the wise and studious the true way leading to the light." Notice that the Mason is intentionally being lied to by his fellow Masons. Mr. Pike continues in his book entitled Morals and Dogma, "It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine that he shall understand them. Their true explication is reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry." So the secrets of the Masonic Lodge are reserved for the adepts, the members of the Illuminati. Mr. Pike further continued that thought in his book entitled Agenda. It was never intended that the mass of Masons should know the meaning of the blue degrees. In the blue degrees, where no symbol received its true explanation. In fact, Mr. Pike called the separation of the average Mason from the adept Mason a circle within a circle. And we saw that at the very beginning of this lecture, where we drew a circle, and inside that circle put a small dot. Those inside the circle were those inside the religion, and those inside the dot knew what the true meanings of the symbols were. Pike wrote a similar thought on page 6 of his book entitled Agenda. Masonry also has its symbols, its ancient symbols, inherited from the mysteries, and intended to veil and conceal the truth from all except the adepts. Masonry gives false interpretations of its symbols. For all except the few, the road to the light is lost. And to convince even the skeptic that Albert Pike meant that the average Mason is lied to about the meaning of the symbols, he wrote this on page 27 of his book entitled Agenda. All of its symbols have a meaning, all of the symbols of the Freemasons have a concealed meaning, these containing only hints cautiously given in ideas easily misunderstood and so intended to be by all but the adepts. But he is misled by a substitute that has for him no meaning, although it indeed contains his reward if he but knew it. So the degrees will tell the initiate the truth if he can figure it out. Pike wrote, whether these degrees have for you a real value depends upon your capacity to understand them, and upon the amount of study and the degree of reflection you have bestowed upon them. No man can understand them fully without close and long study and profound thought. And he goes on to explain why they do not make their secrets known to everyone. Absolute truths are not needed for the masses. In other words, Masonry is a good program of great benefit to mankind, but all men should not know that. That does not make sense. If it is a good program, then why not share it with all of the people? Why must only the adepts get the information that is of benefit to all mankind? And the answer is simple. Albert Pike wrote this on page 32 of Legenda. The principal purpose of the mysteries was to teach the initiates the secret of holy doctrine, the theology and philosophy which the priests concealed from the vulgar as beyond and above their comprehension. So the average person cannot comprehend the truth of the secrets. We are too dumb to understand, so the Masons have decided that only those who can figure it out for themselves can learn the single truth, because only they deserve to know what it is. So the Masons and others are concealing the truth from us because we are too dumb to understand. That is why they conceal the truth from us about the New World Order. The Masons do not like the average man. They know that we are too dumb to figure it out. They know that if we knew the truth about the New World Order, we would not allow them to impose it. Because the good program of the Masons is called the New World Order, and quite simply, the New World Order is not a benefit to all mankind. Pike wrote a similar thought on page 772 of his book. If you desire to find and to gain admission to the sanctuary, we have setting up to show you the way. If you do not, it is useless for us to say more, as it has been useless to say so much. Remember that the Masons ask for light from the Masons inside the lodge. It is written into their initiation ceremony, and the initiate says that he is seeking light in response to the question as to what he's looking for. One who has told us directly who the light bearer is of course, Albert Pike, the greatest Mason of his day. Before I quote this letter, I must qualify it. This letter showed up in a book written in the French language in 1889. The man who wrote the book was, as I remember, not a Mason. The Masons who have read this letter have disputed its authenticity. They claim it is not real. They claim that Mr. Pike never wrote it. I've read the letter in about 6 different books. I personally believe that the letter is authentic, not because I have any evidence that it is real, but because it fits with the other things we know that Albert Pike wrote, that we can confirm. So with that understanding, let me read this letter that certain people claim was written by Albert Pike in 1889. To the crowd, here Mr. Pike is referring apparently to us, the non-Masonic public. So to the crowd we must say, we worship a God, but it is the God one adores without superstition. What he means here is that those of us who believe in the Creator God do so because it is superstition. He is saying that the existence of the Creator God cannot be proven by the human mind. The Masons believe in their God without superstition. They believe that their God is real, the other God of the Bible is not real. That is the reason I wrote my pamphlet entitled God Exists. Because you can know that a belief in the Creator God is not a superstition, it is science, proven by logic, reason, and the laws of science. Mr. Pike continues, you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. All of us initiates of the high degree should maintain the Masonic religion in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. So here Mr. Pike says that the Masons worship Lucifer, that this is the one secret contained within his writings. Notice that he says you can tell it to the high-ranking Masons, meaning the 30th, 31st, and 32nd degrees. You might recall that we read John Robinson's comments on the 30th degree, where the Masons take an oath to destroy Christianity. So this part of the letter appears to ring true as well. Mr. Pike goes on, if Lucifer were not God, would Adonai, the God of the Christians and his priests, falsely accuse and slander him? The Christians have it all backwards. The one true God is Lucifer, not their God, called Adonai. Mr. Pike's letter continued, yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately Adonai is also God. Notice that he wrote that it is unfortunate that Adonai is also a God, that if the universe only had one God, and that God was Lucifer, the world would be a better place. So Mr. Pike is saying that Lucifer was the equal of Adonai. So there are, in truth, according to this Mason, two gods in the universe. One is called Adonai, the Creator God, and the other is called Lucifer, the great architect of the universe. Mr. Pike went on, the true and pure philosophic religion is the belief in Lucifer, equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. So here we can see that the Christian community, according to Mr. Pike, has it all backwards. The God of the Bible is the God of darkness, and the God named Lucifer is the God of light. Notice everything is just the opposite. It might be instructive at this point to remember the principle of reversal. Pike wrote, what is superior is as that which is inferior, and what is below is as that which is above. So he's saying that which is above is as that which is below. Pike made a similar statement in his book entitled Agenda on page 4. Everywhere in our own holy books, we find perpetuated the old light religion. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. So Pike believes that Lucifer is the God of light. And to show you that Albert Pike is not the only one who believes that Lucifer is God, this is once again Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, a Luciferian and occultist, who wrote this, the quote we're going to read, in a book entitled The Secret Doctrine. On page 377 of this book, she wrote this, Satan, the enemy of God, is in reality the highest divine spirit. And elsewhere in her book, on page 413, she identifies Satan as the deity. She wrote this, the true theosophist, the pursuer of divine wisdom and worshiper of absolute perfection, the unknown deity. And this is further proof that what Mr. Pike has written is true. This is a typical pamphlet that was written by a Masonic lodge for those who are outside of the organization wishing to know more about it. One of these little pamphlets said this, Freemasonry has taught the ideals of equality and the importance of education in freeing mankind from prejudice, superstition, and social injustice. Notice that Pike wrote that Christianity is a belief in superstition. And here the Masons as a group are saying that they seek to free mankind from superstition. They are telling you the truth, but in a concealed language. What the pamphlet is saying is that the Masons are teaching their members to rid the world of religion. The Masons speak in